When law enforcement investigated these strange mysteries, they uncovered weird twists from unexpected motives to criminals operating on the other side of the country. Number 5. At about midday on November 8, 2002, police were called to a condo in Stamford, Connecticut. A woman had been attacked and lost her life in the hallway of her own home. It would take a year and a man almost losing his life for police to identify a suspect in this strange case. The woman's name was Annalisa Raimundo. She was 32 years old and lived with her boyfriend, Nelson Sessler. There were no obvious problems in their relationship, and from the outside, everything seemed fine. Annalisa was home alone when she was attacked. At about midday, a woman called from a payphone at a fast food restaurant near the condo. She claimed to be a neighbor and said a man had gone into Annalisa's apartment. The caller didn't even know the woman's name, but believed she was being attacked. When asked for her own name, the caller hung up. The police arrived at the condo to find a horrifying crime scene. Annalisa had been attacked with a bladed object. It looked personal rather than a robbery gone wrong or something like that. The attacker had apparently washed themselves in Annalisa's kitchen sink, leaving behind DNA evidence. When Nelson was told about the attack, he reacted calmly, which the police found strange. He had been at work at the time and claimed to not know anything about the twisted crime that had taken place. He did give the police 2 names, 2 ex-girlfriends who had mental health problems. There were more women that Nelson had previously been involved with, but these were the only 2 that he thought could have committed such a violent act. The police also tried to get a hold of the neighbor who had called, but nobody's voice matched that of the caller. The case went cold, and Nelson tried to move on with his life. He found comfort in a coworker, Sheila Davalu. Davalu was another one of Nelson's ex-girlfriends, but they had separated at the start of 2001. It hadn't been a serious relationship, and Davalu described it as a summer fling. She comforted Nelson after the crime, and months later, they began their relationship again. The problem for Davalu was that she was already married. She was still married to her second husband, Paul Christos, who she'd met while still at university. Davalu was obviously unhappy in her relationship with Paul, but didn't want to divorce again. So on March 2nd, 2003, she came up with another way to get rid of him. She proposed a game where he was blindfolded and handcuffed. She would then press different items against him and he would have to guess what they were. The game ended when Davalu struck him twice with a bladed object. With Paul still blindfolded, Davalu pretended to call 911. She actually called Nelson and invited him over though. After an hour with Paul still alive, she agreed to take him to the hospital, but in the hospital parking lot she struck him again. This time, the attack was seen by witnesses who rushed to Paul's aid, and thankfully he survived and Davalu was arrested. Nelson now knew the truth about his girlfriend's secret life, and seeing how she had treated her husband, he wondered if she had been the one to attack Annalisa. Davalu had actually been obsessed with Nelson even after he broke up with her. She had attacked Annalisa, wanting to get her romantic rival out of the way. Voice recognition software confirmed Davalu was the person who made the call to the police outside of Annalisa's apartment, and it was her DNA that was left in the sink. Davalu was found guilty of attempting to take her husband's life in 2004. It wouldn't be until 2012 that she was found guilty for taking Annalisa's life. She'll spend the rest of her life behind bars. Number 4. On October 3rd, 2020, police arrested a 33-year-old man named Marcelo Romero for a burglary in Ventura County, California. When they processed the unassuming man, they discovered he was linked to 2 high-profile heists. The first burglary took place in February of 2019, and it seemed the then unidentified thief hadn't started small. The victims in this case were Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, who contacted the police when they realized their Los Angeles mansion had been broken into. The thief had gotten away with jewelry, but left behind a tool with his DNA on it. It wasn't a lot to go on when the DNA didn't show up in the police databases, so the case went cold. The thief had apparently not been caught on any security cameras, and there was no sign of the jewelry that had been stolen. Over a year later, on April 28, 2020, on the other side of the country, the police in Tampa, Florida began investigating a robbery at a jewelry store that had taken place the night before. The thief had cut power to the building before prying open the front door. They used a torch to break into one of the safes and fled the scene with $3 million in gold and jewelry. But like the LA case, this thief left something behind. The police discovered multiple water bottles inside the jewelry store, which workers said hadn't been there when they closed up for the night. DNA from the water bottles linked this Tampa theft to the LA break-in. Again, the thief hadn't been caught on camera, and there was still no trace of him in any databases. That would change in October. Details haven't been released about how Ventura County detectives located Romero, but when they searched his home, they found items not only from the robberies they were investigating, but robberies from elsewhere in the country. They also located tools similar to those used in the Tampa theft. As part of his arrest, his DNA was taken, and detectives were shocked to find that he was wanted for crimes in LA and Tampa. But the crimes may not have stopped there, as investigators are now looking into whether Romero may have been involved in other burglaries in the US and abroad. Number 3. On the morning of August 25, 2013, a farm worker stumbled across the body of a man in an almond orchard in Bakersfield, California. The victim was identified as Todd Chance. Solving the crime led police to a strange twist his loved ones couldn't believe. Todd was a truck driver who lived not far from where his body was found. He was married to an elementary school head teacher named Jania Chance and had been for 17 years. They had 2 daughters together and a daughter from Jania's previous relationship. The family was well respected in their community and seemed to be going from strength to strength. Todd wasn't working the day the strange mystery occurred. He left the house at 7:30 a.m. the day before his body was found in his Ford Mustang. According to some witnesses, he was seen getting in the car with the woman. Investigating the crime scene, the police discovered Todd had been struck twice by bullets at point-blank range. Tire marks located nearby indicated someone had dumped him there and driven off. His phone and wallet were found nearby, indicating this wasn't a theft, but police wondered if Todd may have been the victim of a carjacking. Todd's car was located later that day in southwest Bakersfield. The area was something of a crime hotspot, and it looked like the theory might have been panning out, until police searched the car. Visible through the window were the car keys and the handle of the weapon that had been used to take Todd's life. This didn't look like a criminal had just dumped the car. It looked staged to encourage someone to steal it. Security camera footage from nearby homes showed the person who had abandoned the car. They were wearing a hat and bulky clothing and their face wasn't visible. When the footage was shown to Jania and Todd's father, they couldn't identify the person. Luckily for the police, there was plenty of security footage to track this person down. They went on a strange route and changed clothing multiple times. At one point, they visited a Starbucks. Witnesses at the Starbucks described the person as a white woman, and police began to suspect Jania may have been behind the crime. The problem was motive. Even though Jania later cashed out life insurance policies her husband had, she was by far the higher earner, and it seemed unlikely money would be the sole motive. Then the police turned to Todd's phone. They found messages between Todd and his ex-fiancée. They hadn't been having a physical affair, but he had requested pictures from her and talked about getting back together. Police alleged Jania had discovered the messages and lashed out at her husband. They also discovered that she'd been to a CSI convention shortly before the crime took place and had apparently learned techniques to avoid capture. Years would go by as police collected evidence, but in January of 2020, Jania was found guilty of this strange crime and was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Number 2. In the early hours of the morning of April 18, 2018, law enforcement received a call about a missing man. After a day-long search, Larry Price Jr. was found at the side of the road with a strange story. Price was a businessman who worked in the coal industry, He was vice president of surface activities at a company called Surface Peak Industries in Billings, Virginia, and owned 2 coal-related companies. He also owned a store that sold used motorcycles. He dealt with large sums of money and borrowed millions of dollars from various companies to invest in coal mining in the area. He also spent large sums of money and had the largest home in Billings. So when his wife reported him missing, it quickly got people's attention. Local law enforcement and the FBI were involved in the search in this high-profile case. His disappearance didn't remain a mystery for long, though. That evening, a motorist found Price at the side of the road. He told police he had been kidnapped by a biker gang. They took him to his motorcycle store, where they broke into the safe before dumping him at the side of the road. It quickly became clear that the story wasn't adding up. Security camera footage showed no such break-in. He then changed his story multiple times. At one point, he said he may have been kidnapped because he owed people money. When asked who he owed money to, he said he would plead the fifth. Price eventually said he should just say that he made the whole thing up, and this was the truth. The FBI investigators soon learned that he'd spent the day with the woman he knew. This prompted news reports that Price had been planning to run off with a mistress, but there was far more to this strange story than that. The day Price went missing, 90M had sent representatives to confront him. 90M was one of the 3 companies Price owed money to, and they'd been asking about it for a while. Price had fled his home before they could arrive. Investigators soon uncovered Price's scheme. He owed more than $20 million to 3 different companies and had no way to pay that money back. Instead of investing it like he said he would, he'd spent the money on his own lifestyle. Price pleaded guilty to wire fraud, money laundering, and faking his own kidnapping, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Number 1. The story of Kelly and Jason Cochran is one of the most disturbing true crime stories with a dark twist. The couple married in 2002, shortly after Kelly graduated from high school. On the night of their wedding, they made a pact. If either of them cheated, they would take the life of whoever they were having an affair with. For 12 years, there was apparently no need to invoke that pact. The couple worked together servicing swimming pools until Jason Cochran's back gave out and he was unable to work. Kelly tried to support them both alone for a while before they moved to Iron River, Michigan in 2013. In Michigan, Kelly began working at a factory where she met Christopher Reagan. They became very close, so much so that rumors began to spread that they were having an affair. At the time, Christopher was in a relationship with a woman named Terry, but that relationship ended as he began to spend more time with Kelly. The rumors were true though. For months, Kelly and Christopher had been having an affair behind Jason's back. But in October of 2014, Jason found out about the affair. The pact they had made on their wedding night was no joke to Jason, and according to Kelly, he demanded she invite Christopher over. On the evening of October 14th, she did just that. Christopher wrote directions to Kelly's home on a sticky note, got in his car, and headed to Cochran's home, thinking he was going to spend the night. Once he was there, Jason took Christopher's life. Neighbors heard the sound of a bullet firing, then the sound of a saw. The Cochrans dumped Christopher's remains in the woods, then continued to act like nothing had happened. Christopher was reported missing 10 days later. He had started talking to Terry again, but when she hadn't heard from him, she became worried. Police found Christopher's car, but there was no sign of the missing man. The sticky note with directions to the Cochran home was discovered though, and police began their search there. Kelly admitted to the affair. She said they had an open marriage. Jason was obviously not happy about his wife's relationship, and there was no evidence pointing to them doing anything wrong. The case went cold and the Cochrans moved out of the area. This dark mystery may have remained unsolved if it wasn't for Kelly. According to her, Christopher was the one good thing in her life, and she resented her husband for what he had done. On February 20th, 2016, Kelly took Jason's life by smothering him. At first, it looked like he had taken too many illegal substances, but his autopsy revealed the truth. Kelly tried to flee, but was later arrested and confessed to all that had happened. While behind bars, she claimed responsibility for another 9 unsolved cases, but the details of any of these other crimes haven't been revealed. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.